All right, let's move into the biggest takeaways from college football week 6. We got a lot to talk about here, but let's start with Texas and Penn State. Both top 10 teams fell out of the rankings. Some pretty bad losses in that case. I think Penn State's was worse than Texas's, because I got some respect for Florida. But initial thoughts on that, falling out of the rankings?
Yeah, I thought it was a shock that Texas fell out of the rankings just from starting at number 9 and losing to a Florida team that was within the top 15 coming into the season by that same AP poll. Like, I think that is just such a drastic switch up. And I from week to week, it is going to be super drastic. I feel like some of our opinions even sway pretty drastically. But just in general, like falling 16 spots, 17 out of the rankings, and wherever they're at, it is just so dramatic. A home SEC loss versus a Florida team that still does talent. They haven't been playing well the last couple weeks, right? They lost to USF, they lost to Miami, they lost to LSU, but still, like, it's a Florida Gators team that has been playing hard at the very least. And DJ Lagway finally found what he was supposed to be this season. He had a half decent game, and that defense still played well. Like, it's not like that defense has been talked about as the hardest playing unit on that team for a little bit now. So Texas losing on the road and dropping 16 spots is just a little bit drastic for me, just because their 2 losses are against a team that was in the top 15 at the start of the season, and then a team that is the number 1 team in the nation as of right now. So I think it's just a little bit harsh, but I see where they're coming from, and Texas has a hard schedule ahead. So it might have happened either way, but we'll see where they go from here.
So yeah, I think I'll happily take a little bit of credit, half credit at least, on this Florida-Texas game. I didn't choose Florida to win this game, but I have been the one who, after every single week, I'm saying, like, this Florida team they're still playing for Billy Napier, and that defense is really good. And Texas, man, with Arch Manning, this season's going to be lost. I don't know if they're going to figure it out this year, and that's just so unfortunate for them, and everything that it was supposed to be with Steve Sarkisian and all of them. They were going to potentially be a playoff team. I think I picked them to win the SEC preseason. Out of the question now. They're not going to be able to figure it out. But I was a little bit shocked that they fell completely out, just because their other loss is against Ohio State, and the Texas defense is really good. For Penn State, they were down a good portion of the game against Oregon. And I know they came back, OT thriller, everything like that. But this UCLA loss, even though I give them credit, a good quality loss against Oregon, that UCLA loss is one of the most shocking I think I have seen in recent memory. Because Penn State, like, they're coming off a loss. Yes, they're going on the road. I just didn't ever even see this coming at all. I don't even know what the opening spread was for this game, but oh my goodness, like, we were talking about UCLA going winless, and it seemed like a little far-fetched, initially when you think about it, but then you take a look at their schedule and you're like, yeah, it could happen. So that was crazy. I agree with Penn State falling out of the rankings at that point. I wasn't high on them initially either, and they don't really have anything to show for it win-wise anyway. So I was okay with that. Texas, I'd put them a notch ahead of Penn State, but I mean, they're both just 2 peas in a pod. They deserve to go out, and Florida State still deserve to be ranked, which I had seen a lot of other people talk about. The difference between Florida State and those other teams is that Florida State has a ranked win against Alabama, who's playing really well. So that's where I did draw a distinction. So I was glad that Florida State remained in the rankings. Just brought up Alabama. They beat Vanderbilt 30-14. Good handling of a decent SEC team there. What are we thinking about Bama? What do we think about Vanderbilt? Bama's got Missouri coming up this week too.
Yeah, so I think this is another win that Bama stacks that could look good on the resume moving forward. I think that Vanderbilt team is just as good as they played. Like, that this game was a close game for an extended period of time. Diego Pavia kept them in it in the first half, and it kind of just like got away from them in the second half. And that last second touchdown made it look a little bit farther than it actually was. Vanderbilt played a really hard game, especially on the road in Tuscaloosa. Like, for what this game, like, there was like quotes from like Ryan Williams at the beginning of the season, like he went on John Gruden's podcast and he was like, this year we're going to smash like an ant with a sledgehammer or something like that. Like, he was like, and I don't know, just everything that happened last year, you'd think that this would have been a bigger blowout if Bama was going to win, and Vanderbilt still stayed in there. So I think that this is a quality loss from Vanderbilt's side. And from the Alabama side, you're stacking wins, you're stacking confidence. You come off a win where you beat Georgia, who hadn't lost at home in 33 straight games, and then you get a win at home versus Vanderbilt, even going into Missouri game versus a team that's not a number 14 in the country, and they are also undefeated, or not also undefeated. They are undefeated. Alabama's not. I think that this gives you enough. This gives you enough of a boost to kind of not breeze past them. But I don't see a world in which Alabama lose that game, even though it's another top 15 matchup. And I think this is good for that whole program, like because everybody, especially after that FSU loss, people weren't sure about what FSU was going to be. Like people were like calling for Kalen DeBoer's job at some point. We were even saying that like he was definitely his seat was definitely hot going out of week 2, but I think he silenced a lot of that. And Ty Simpson looks really good, so that whole program is back to being on the up, I guess.
Yeah, Ty Simpson. I think I saw somebody say if Ty Simpson, if his name was Ty Manning or something, we would be wrapping up the Heisman race right now. Like he's been really good. I'll just talk about Alabama Mizzou for a second. I'm not buying Missouri whatsoever. I'm going to have to see them win one of these bigger SEC games before I ever get on the hype train. Them being at 14 feels like it was last year and the year before that, if you will. And it'll probably be the highest point that they get to this year. I don't think that, I mean, maybe they rattle off wins against Auburn and Vandy, but I think they run into Texas A&M, and wherever they end up being during that game will be the highest that they end up going. I respect them. Their offense looks good. Got the transfer QB, got all of the pieces, got the ingredients, but I'm going to need to see it first. I'm just being I'm being so serious. Like I just don't, I don't think it's going to be close. Alabama minus 2.5. I am smashing that all day long.
Yeah,
yeah. Like there's no shot. Alabama by 2 touchdowns, bro. Like, what are we talking about here? Okay. I'm sorry. I think Alabama's a good team. Also, I'm glad that they're now ahead of Georgia. I know there was a little bit of like, it's weird whenever you like get in the rankings and Georgia's at the time, like what, 3-1 or whatever. And Alabama's 3-1 as well. But the head-to-head, Alabama wins, but Alabama lost to Florida State. So there was a little bit of a funky move around there, and Florida State lost to Virginia. I'm glad that figured itself out. Alabama jumped ahead of Georgia in the AP poll too. I think that was a good touch to the end of the weekend as well.
Yeah, I agree. I also think that the Miami reshuffling back to number 2 was well warranted. They won that game at about 28-3 in the fourth quarter, and they just let some things go where they let some drives that probably shouldn't have been so extended, especially that one where FSU converted 3 straight fourth downs. That wasn't the greatest showing from the defense, but at that point the game was well in hand, and they just weren't like playing as well as they should have. The offensive play calling kind of just diminished towards the end of the fourth quarter, and that whole game though, wrapping that up was good enough for them to move back to the number 2 spot. So I'm glad that that also figured itself out, because I would definitely had my doubts. I wouldn't have been mad if Oregon was number 2, but I'm glad that Miami's back up there.
I don't think it would make any sense. I mean, we were gonna hold this till later, so I won't say everything, but I would have thought it's ridiculous to have Oregon ahead of Miami. It just doesn't make any sense. That Penn State win, I'm not usually one to just immediately like flip what a win means the week after, but that Penn State loss was so bad. I think Oregon has a good road win against Penn State, but that's kind of where that stops. And then if you compare it to what Miami has done, it's not the same. It's not the same. We'll get into that a little bit later. We'll talk about that later. I'm glad it figured itself out. Also, by the way, Miami's on a bye, so Oregon's just going to jump them if they beat Indiana. It's just all about week to week, making sure that we get the rankings right, and that's what's most important. Even though Oregon is going to jump up to number 2 probably, because I think they're going to beat Indiana. The last couple of things, I guess, Texas Tech took care of business, and they look to be the top team in the Big 12 because Iowa State went down, and the SEC it's kind of wide open right now. I'll throw the Big 12 at you right now. Texas Tech or the field?
Texas Tech. I think that defense looks really, really good. That offense is doing like not exactly replicating what the defense is doing, but I just don't see a world in which Texas Tech doesn't take the rest of the Big 12. Like Arizona State already has a loss against a Mississippi State team that is like probably in the middle of the conference in the SEC, and then Iowa State losing this weekend was really bad for them. I know they like that game was projected to be close, but if they were going to be competitive, they need to beat Cincinnati, and they couldn't do it. So I think Texas Tech is the clear favorite at this point, and then everybody else. There's a case to be made for teams like BYU and all the other 2 teams that I mentioned, Iowa State and Arizona State. But I think that Texas Tech looks really, really good right now, and they've been running it up against the opponents that they faced so far.
Arizona State sneakily coming back into the rankings and going up further as teams drop. It's great to see my preseason Big 12 conference championship pick and playoff team, I think, too. And Sam Levitt, dark horse Heisman. So I don't think that they're that good anymore, but I did at one point in this year.
They were your
Let's
conference pick on
yeah,
automatic playoff.
let's go. Okay, let's go. And let's not dwell on that. Let's not dwell on that. We've made some bad picks. SEC, it's kind of wide open. Top teams are Ole Miss, Texas A&M. Is that how it's going to end?
I don't see a world in which Ole Miss and Texas A&M are the top two teams in the SEC. I think that Alabama fights back at some point. Georgia should go on a run here. I watched a lot of Texas A&M almost begrudgingly last year. I saw a lot of Marcel Reed, especially in that like Notre Dame game, that Texas game towards the end of the season where they could have made it to the SEC championship had they beat Texas. I just don't. I'm not super confident in Marcel Reed to go out and win me big SEC football games. Like I know that I mean, however you feel about Auburn, like that was probably a pretty good win. But against the top teams in the SEC, Marcel Reed, it just feels like is a slight step below, and I think you'll see that in some of these games. Like they didn't have any offense towards the end of the season. I understand Texas defense is like one of the best in the nation, but or if not the best in the nation, especially last year. But I just didn't see enough, and I feel like he's improved, but not drastically enough where I think that he's going to go out and win the SEC this year. Those defenses in that big conference, specifically the SEC, is too good. And I understand they have two of the best receivers in the nation too. I'm just not super confident, and we'll see. Don't get me wrong, they're one of the best teams in the nation, and could they still be in the college football playoff without winning the SEC? For sure, but I'm not confident in Texas A&M, and then Ole Miss. I definitely could be lower on them. I think that LSU win doesn't mean as much as people are making out to be, and at some point they'll run into a brick wall. And I think it starts shuffling back down to Oklahoma, Alabama, and Georgia, somewhere at the top there.
Yeah, I like
and
Texas
Tennessee.
A&M.
And Tennessee.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, Tennessee too. I'm glad you mentioned though. I think that's as far as it goes. I'm not taking Missouri or Vanderbilt seriously right now as far as the SEC is concerned. I think my pick would be Alabama, but I got respect for Texas A&M because I think they're better than Ole Miss. Oklahoma is another team we definitely got to mention here as well, but with Mateer out like for however long that is, and they get Texas this upcoming week, that could get a little bit funky, especially if they start dropping a game or two in their quest to the SEC championship game. Also, the Auburn win, in my opinion, I don't like it because of the missed call by the refs with that touchdown play. And then Michigan, I think, is really not that good. So I don't have that win being all that great either for them. So it's like I question the ceiling a little bit with them. So I think if they run into some of the better teams in the SEC, I don't think they'll be able to pull it out even with Mateer. So I think that's a little bit tough for them. I would say Alabama is actually my pick to win the SEC the rest of the way.